year. But Herbert has come back again and again, winning the second race of the season at Bristol, Tennessee, and moving into the points lead in September. Now, returning to Bristol for the final race of the season, he faces the longest of odds.
I think if we could pull this out this year, that would be really something after missing 2 races.
Completing the title foursome is Doug Foxworth, 29 and Texas tough. Tough because he's had to be in 1993. Foxworth started strongly, winning the season opener at Darlington, South Carolina, and seizing the early points lead. For Foxworth, the season ahead looked like a 5-second run to his first world championship. But then, at Bristol, Tennessee, Foxworth's world came crashing down literally. 2 spectacular wrecks within 24 hours put Foxworth in the hospital and his title dream on the ropes. But Foxworth, too, has come back, and he knows what's at stake in today's eliminations.
Coming down to this race right here, it's all, all the marbles are for today.
4 drivers, 1 world championship, 3 rounds to drag racing glory. ESPN, the world leader in motorsport coverage, presents SPEEDWORLD. In the hills of northeastern Tennessee lies Bristol International Dragway, home of the International Hot Rod Association and site of the Snap-on Tools Fall National.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. We have a breezy Indian summer day here in Thunder Valley, but that color in the trees tells you it won't be long before wood smoke replaces tire smoke here in northeastern Tennessee. We're back here at Bristol International Dragway for the Fall Nationals, the final event of the 1993 International Hot Rod Association season. And for 2 of our 4 professional categories, it's a coming out party for champions already crowned. Doug Kirk in Pro Stock and Scotty Cannon in Pro Modified. In our 2 other pro categories, however, we have yet to crown champions. In Alcohol Funny Car, it would appear young Canadian Todd Payton is on his way to the crown, although that is yet to be decided. And then we have Top Fuel, the closest professional class points battle in IHRA history. No fewer than 4 individual drivers have a shot at this championship. They will be the focus of the hour to come. Right now, let's get down to ESPN drag racing analyst Ted Jones to introduce the combatants in Top Fuel.
Bob, Doug Foxworth has the points lead right now, but not necessarily an advantage. Any driver that's going to win the World Championship is going to have to go to the final round. As a matter of fact, the driver that goes to the final round will probably win it. However, if all 4 drivers go out of competition in the same early round of competition, then Doug Foxworth, the points leader, will automatically be your new world champion, with the exception of Doug Herbert, who also has to set a record. Now, his best shot at setting a record is the speed record. It's 288 miles per hour. He's already gone 285, and he's installed a special gear in the rear end of the car. He has to break the record twice, once to break it and once to back it up. He only has 3 rounds of competition in which he has the opportunity to do that. The bottom line is it's going to go right down to the wire between all 4 drivers, Doug Foxworth, Doug Herbert, Richard LANGSON, and Bruce Larson. The winner probably won't be decided until the end of this event. For more on what to expect in heads-to-head competition and how they're paired up, let's go to the 3rd member of our ESPN broadcast team. Here's Brett Kepner.
Well, gentlemen, you're absolutely right. The Top Fuel war that we have here at the season-ending 1993 IHRA Fall Nationals is easily the most intense in IHRA history. But what's really interesting about it, and if I can be cliche, is that you can now literally cut the tension in the air with a knife. Why? Because after qualifying was completed, those top 4 points earners will not face each other until the semifinal round. We have a possible situation here where the 4 remaining racers in the semis will be the 4 drivers racing for the World Championship. And that in itself is an amazing stroke of luck for the fans, because it's going to make it one of the greatest drag races we've ever seen. Now, the other big points war going on is in Pro Alcohol Funny Car, where Todd Payton, the tires-only Olds Cutlass out of Ontario, Canada, who's been leading the series most of the year, can win the World Championship if he makes it to the semifinal round. But that's the only way he can lock out Ohio's Jim Bailey, who's driving his Ford Probe like he's never driven it before here this weekend, trying to pass Todd Payton for that World Championship in the last race of the year. Now, one variable that will put every one of these drivers on an even playing field is the weather. It has changed dramatically since qualifying ended, so dramatically that today's racing conditions are completely different than anything they've had to race in so far during this event. But that'll make it even that much more interesting when we get into eliminations, and let's face it, these are the best of the best racing for the biggest title of the year. They'll come up with the answers. Bob Varsha, what are the weather stats?
Here they
they are, Brett. Temperature 54 degrees, partly cloudy skies, very little chance of rain, and barometric pressure perfect for making horsepower. Now, instead of our coverage of the 3M Scotchgard Automotive Night of Fire from this weekend in Bristol, we offer you the best of the Night of Fire. Going back to June, right here at Bristol at the Spring Nationals, watch the right-hand lane as John Carey suffers an engine explosion and a tire explosion and then takes out Doug Foxworth.
Foxworth, severely injured, had to repair in time to get back into the action the next day.
And in the action the next day, he flipped his race car, and that severely hampered Foxworth's chances of a world championship. But he's here this weekend. How about the jet car incident at the Mid-American Nationals at Scribner? Watch Bob Lutz.
Lutz with a jet car mishap very rarely occurs. He turns over. He's completely upside down. Now comes back up on all fours, skidding. The sparks are caused by the frame actually rubbing on the hard asphalt surface.
An absolutely spectacular engine explosion followed. Lutz did everything he could to get out of that car, and the safety crews were soon on hand to help put out the conflagration. We move on to the World Nationals, Norwalk, Ohio. Watch Tony Bogelow's Alcohol Funny Car cross Jim Bailey. Now keep in mind, Bailey is in the running for the Alcohol World Championship. A real near miss there. In Epping, New Hampshire, at the North American Nationals, Doug Herbert suffered a tire explosion that dropped the frame and the engine down to the racetrack and took him out of action.
The rear frame was completely damaged. However, he took it to a frame shop and repaired it overnight.
And came back to compete the next day. Also at Epping, watch Bob Simmons suffer an enormous engine explosion. The biggest conflagration I can recall, even out of a top fuel car.
The onboard extinguisher system didn't do the job this time.
But when it comes to pure spectacle, you can't beat even a routine pass from Bob Motes and his jet-powered Kenworth truck. About 200 miles an hour in a semi. Those are the highlights of a season of Scotchgard Automotive Protectors 3M Nights of Fire. This ESPN Speed World presentation is brought to you by the more than 700 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the right parts at the right price. And by new advanced high-tech formula Quaker State Motor Oil. It's formulated for today's high-tech engines. We'll be right back to Thunder Valley to pick up the action with eliminations in Pro Modified. Stay with us. Welcome back to Bristol International Dragway, where the temperature continues to drop, and that means good things when it comes to making horsepower. First off, here's Brett Kepner with this week's edition of Drag Review.
Our season-ending edition of Drag Review features rumors on racers, race programs, and racing events for the upcoming 1994 IHRA season. First, an update on the Pro Modified revolution that is creating more and more nostalgia-bodied cars for the coming season. The newest entry in those wars, Scotty Cannon, the two-time world champ with the Onset Corvette, is going to go back to the same type of machine that won him his first national event and world championship title on 1940 Willys. There are a lot more of the nostalgia cars being built. It looks now like it's going to be literally a flood of these cars at the season-opening Winter Nationals in '94. As far as race programs are concerned, the International Hot Rod Association has re-signed virtually all of its sportsman and professional category shootouts for 1994 again, which will allow the IHRA racers to compete for what are still the largest single season-ending purses in drag racing. As far as racing events are concerned, the rumors are still flying that the International Hot Rod Association will be moving into two brand new national event racing sites for 1994. Now, we're sworn to secrecy as to the location of these new events, but I can give you these hints. At one racetrack, if you draw a red light, it's going to be crimson red. The other track should have one heck of a tailwind. Figure it out for yourself, but that's this year's edition of Drag Review.
And always entertaining, Brett Kepner. We have a big crowd on hand for the season-ending Fall Nationals. Let's get right to it now. Quarterfinal eliminations in Pro Modified. Our first matchup, Carl Moyer in his nitrous-boosted Chevy Corvette. His opponent, Mark Carter from Okarche, Oklahoma in a 92 Beretta.
Carter, who's done well on the IHRA trail this year, 706 cubic inches of Pontiac, as is Moyer's car, equipped with the same size engine.
Great launch for Moyer, and then problems from underneath, but not as bad as the ones Carter had.
Looks like Moyer will pick up the win, though, with a 779, only 126 mile an hour, possibly a nitrous explosion. Let's take a look. It's underneath the car right there.
Move on to our next pair, the unmistakable roar of a blown alcohol car. This is Bill Kuhlman from Wentzville, Missouri, in his Chevy Corvette. His opponent, Al Billis, still running a 1991 Chevy Camaro that took him to second in the championship last year, but he too goes with blown alcohol.
Yes, indeed. Al Billis surprised everyone when he came out with the blown car. So 2 blown cars on the line right now. Al Billis out of Barrie, Ontario, Canada.
In fact, these were number 2 and 3 in the world last year as Kuhlman drove a different car. Good launch for both drivers. Give the advantage marginally to Kuhlman. Billis is going to try to run him down, but he can't do it.
Bill Kuhlman, 667, 204, and right you were, Bob, off the line. A fine job with a 430 React.
Now the unmistakable flames on the hood of the Onsat Chevrolet Corvette ZR1. This is Scotty Cannon, now a 3-time Pro Modified champion. His opponent, Chris Hunt from Killen, Alabama.
Scotty qualified number 2 here today. Chris Hunt, number 7. Hunt does very well on the IHRA trail. Only 698 cubic inches of Chevrolet power.
A look inside the cockpit as they come to the line. Up come the revs. And away they go. That was Chris Hunt, and he has murdered Scotty Cannon at the tree.
Absolutely unbelievable. An upset. Chris Hunt, 6.73, 205 mile an hour. Listen to this. Cannon goes a 670 and loses.
The upset of the year in Pro Modified. In our other matchup, Steve Johnson had a bye, so he will go up against Bill Kuhlman in the next round. Chris Hunt will take on Carl Moyer. In a moment, we'll be back for the Racing Gas Fuel Pro Stocks. Welcome back to the IHRA Fall Nationals, sponsored by Snap-on Tools here at Thunder Valley, Bristol, Tennessee. Bob Barsha, Ted Jones, Brett Kepner with you. Time for quarterfinal action in Pro Stock. Our first matchup, John Montecalvo from Center Moriches, New York, up against Robert Patrick from Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Robert Patrick has moved up to 810 cubic inches in this Ford, but listen to this. He qualified number 1 when he did that, and everybody's wondering, who is this guy?
Well, they might know Robert Patrick. All he did was win 2 events this year, the World Nationals at Norwalk, Ohio, and the North American Nationals at Epping, New Hampshire.
He's on a roll. Good hole shot. Yes, Patrick with a 697, 197 miles per hour to Montecalvo's losing 709.
Now here is a new look for 5-time IHRA Pro Stock World Champion Ricky Smith from King, North Carolina. Ricky with new sponsorship from Slick 50, new body shell for that Pontiac, but the same old opponent, Doug Kirk, 2-time IHRA Pro Stock champion now in 1991 and this year, 1993.
Kirk running 802 cubic inches, a big block Oldsmobile against Tricky Ricky's 786. Let's see what happens.
Ricky Smith, with his patented breakaway start, has the advantage by a huge margin.
Oh, Tricky Ricky blew him away, 698, 196 miles per hour to pick up the victory.
I can't believe these performances. As you take a look at Roy Hill, one half of our next matchup, there's the professor. The track record for Pro Stock coming in was 7.026 seconds. 8 of the first 16 matchups were decided at 7 seconds or better. Roy Hill's opponent, Terry Leggett from Pinetown, North Carolina.
2 big 810 cubic inch Fords will do battle now, taking their time staging a little side job. They're ready.
Oh, Roy Hill gets a little sideways in the red car in the near lane.
It'll be Roy Hill, 6.95, 199 miles per hour as the teacher moves up.
Everybody has to run sub 7 seconds. We haven't seen anything like this ever in Pro Stock. Mark Thomas from Cincinnati, Ohio, brings his 802 cubic inch old-powered Cutlass to the line against Tim Neighbors from Lawrenceville, Georgia, a winner at our most recent race at Budge Creek, Maryland.
Neighbors qualifying number 5, Thomas number 4. Now, Thomas is relatively a rookie this year, at least in Pro Stock drag racing. Tim Neighbors, a second-generation drag racer, but he's been doing this about 3 or 4 years.
The whole shot goes marginally to Mark Thomas, and Neighbors get him.
Mark Thomas, 6.98, 199 miles per hour. You better turn a 6 or go home.
Well, once again in that round, you had to run under 7 to advance, and they will. Robert Patrick will face Mark Thomas, and Ricky Smith will take on Roy Hill. Boy, that'll be a drag race to watch. Now it's time for Brett Kepner with a track fact. No, not on staying warm. Let's go down to the top fuel pits. There is Richard Langson, championship contender. Here's Brett.
Richard Langson, Frank Pfeiffer, and his crew of sons have worked to get into this Top Fuel World Championship battle. They're using a race car with nothing but the state-of-the-art pieces of equipment available for Top Fuel racing today. But easily one of the most popular pieces of equipment used by any of the professional category teams anymore isn't on the race car. It's not on the chassis. It's connected to the crew chief's ear. Ronnie Swearingen is giving you a classic example of the modern-day Top Fuel dragster crew chief on the phone. Now, Swearingen's a classic example of one of those Lendahl crew chiefs who work for 8 or 10 different teams during a season. While he's working on the Pfeiffer & Sons machine here at Bristol, he may be talking to another team running a match race somewhere else in the country and actually setting up their fuel system over the phone lines. A classic case of reaching out and tuning someone.
Oh, Brett, I can't believe you said that. But Ronnie Swearingen, if that team goes to the final, will be a part of their secret armory. We'll be right back. We are back at Bristol International Dragway, where the crowd has spilled over into the staging lanes as we get set for alcohol funny cars. Now there's a look at Jim Bailey in the far lane. Bailey coming into this weekend with a shot at Todd Payton's points lead. And just like Top Fuel, the championship will be decided here. But in that first round, he had to get around Tony Bogelow from Hamilton, Ohio. Getting a little squirrely in the far lane with Bailey and Bogelow. Put him down, essentially deciding the championship.
That's it. Bailey had to stay alive and do everything that Payton did. So when he went down in the first round, it was over.
Next pair up featured Todd Payton. You saw his dad helping to line him up in the lane. The 23-year-old airline pilot from Canada with his chance to put an exclamation point on an up-and-down season in 1993 as he faced Joe Camella from Parma, Ohio. Away they went, right off the launch pad. Todd Payton with problems, getting a little swirly, and then fire breaks out under the hood. He has clinched the title, but lost the race, and at this point, that's the least of his problems.
Yes, indeed it is. That cockpit is filled with smoke. That's a big oil fire, and it looks like the onboard extinguisher system is not going to put it out. As the car begins to disappear into the smoke, you're seeing exactly what Todd Payton is seeing.
He managed to keep it off the rail, which in itself is an outstanding piece of driving. But somewhere in that cloud of smoke, there he is. He's got the escape hatch open. The PTS race and rescue crew is there. And Todd Payton is out of the car. Let's hear from him.
Okay. All right. The fire's out. The fire's out. You get smart. You want to sit down? Sit down. Sit down here. Come on down, Joe. Okay, go ahead and run it down. All right, where were we?
You lose some weight, I gotta haul your ass out of there again, okay?
I'll work on it.
Okay.
We'll get you a little oxygen.
All right,
here,
I want
bud.
you to go to the ambulance and get some oxygen inside, okay? Now, come on, let's go.
Sounds
do
good.
it. Let's do it. Hey. Okay.
And there is Jim Bailey coming over to make sure that Todd Payton is okay. What a way to win a championship.
Cut back in. Let's cut back in.
Now here's another look. Watch the left lane fire immediately under the front end of the car, bursting out of the left side. And at this point, the smoke starts to fill the cockpit. Watch the driving job from Todd Payton.
This is incredible. You know he can hardly see Bob right now. He's almost driving from instinct, staying off that guardrail.
You see flames coming up around the engine cowling. And at this point, you better believe that Todd Payton's only thought is to get those belts loosened and get out of that race car.
Now, we won't be able to see him actually begin to come through the escape hatch, but he did.
That is Todd Payton's dad coming over to make sure his son is all right. Todd Payton asked, what did it do to the car? His father said it burned it pretty decent. And with that, Todd Payton does put an exclamation point on his championship. In the semifinals of Alcohol Funny Car, Joe Cavello will meet Jim Late, and Butch KERNODLE will take on Jerry Dorniker. We'll be back to Bristol International Dragway for some Top Fuel. We are back at Thunder Valley, where some future drag racers in Top Fuel have their eyes on the cars coming to the line. To give you some idea of the tension involved in this championship chase, there is Big Daddy Don Garlitz watching qualifying now. This is Saturday afternoon qualifying. There's Richard Langson. There's his opponent, Doug Herbert. Keep in mind, this is just to get into the field. Watch these guys go at it. Side by side, Langson and Herbert with some pretty close running. See the crew standing around looking on.
That's Bobby Rex, the owner of Foxworth's car. Looks a little frustrated after that run.
Here is Bruce Larson's qualifying effort. The guy in the opposite lane went up in smoke, but all that these four drivers and teams have in mind is each other. 5:26. Can we go out and beat that? Can we run that time? The tension is absolutely palpable in this Top Fuel battle. Let's pick it up now with elimination. This is the quarterfinals. Our first matchup, Richard Langson against Mike Smith. Mike Smith has the chance to be a championship spoiler. If he can beat this man, Richard Langson, let's hear from the contender.
We were 10th 2 years ago. We came in 4th last year, and here we are. I guess we're in 2nd place right now fighting for the championship. So Frank and I are certainly pumped up, and the boys are just ecstatic. I don't think anybody slept last night, you know, thinking about what's going on the next 2 days. So it's certainly a big point in our lives. I've won some races, but this is the biggest thing we've ever done.
Yep, sounds like a college freshman quarterback on the eve of the bowl game. There's Mike Smith. Young Mike out of Dover, Delaware, drives as a teammate to Diesel John Carey. Boy, right now he could have the career pass that knocks Richard Langson out of the championship fight.
Oh, you can bet he will, too. Second-generation drag racer, son of Paul Smith, and it looks like he boils the heights right off the car. Langson, a 5:14, 273 miles per hour. He's on target.
In fact, he laid a light on Mike Smith, .467. Let's ride along with Richard now with the help of our Tostiasti Spumani in-car camera.
Well, he just puts it down, hangs on, and gets ready, bang, to hit the parachute. That's how fast it happens, in 5 seconds. And, of course, you would be feeling about 4 Gs right there.
A lot of oil on the front of the engine, but it was worth it. Mike Smith boiled the tires. Second quickest run you've ever made. 5:14 at 273. I might add a 9:17 60-foot time, which is unheard of for this track.
The car just took off like a rocket ship, Brett. I mean, it just nailed me back. I could hardly see. I got it.
I will point out that that was a very, very iffy match. You had to go out first ahead of everybody to see what the track was like. What do you think now?
Oh, it's there. Track's there. I mean, we're going to see probably an O here.
How's the pressure?
I'm feeling better now. Once the motor starts, I feel better. I was a little nervous during the national anthem.
Like I said, just like a college quarterback. Well, you can bet that news about the track has gotten back to everybody else. Now, here is Jack Ostrander. Pontiac Jack was a factor in this championship until just a couple of races ago. His opponent, Bruce Larson. Let's hear from Larson.
We'd have to win the race, and a couple of the other guys that are number 2 and number 3 would have to go out early. So it would have to be a storybook deal for us. But if you go back to the last race at New England Dragway, that's the way it happened. We put the number 1 guy out the first round, and that's why we're so close right now. So it can happen.
That's right, exactly. Bruce Larson put the number 1 guy out by going all the way to the final and then winning.
And Bruce Larson wasn't even qualified for the event. He came in as an alternate. Talk about a Cinderella story in reverse.
Bruce Larson lays the light on Pontiac Jack and wins it.
Larson, 5:12, 266 miles per hour. He steps the pace up. What a fine driving job. We'll look at it one more time. Now you can see the track is there from right off the pad. No tire smoke whatsoever. Garland's had the clutch set up perfect. Larson did a magnificent driving job.
You need to congratulate your man. He hole shot Ostrander by about 5 or 6 hundredths.
Good show. I could tell he moved first.
That was an accidental sneaky hole shot.
Well, he took a long time to stage, and there was heating up the clutch because you were already with your foot off, see, and it was dragging it because it had a lot of stall in it.
Go out, and I pulled a little harder on the brake, and it held long enough, but I was rolling.
I know. Well,
maybe Big's got the luck here, huh?
I hope so.
Yep, the lights didn't detect the rolling start by Bruce Larson. Now here comes Doug Foxworth from Lytle, Texas, racing Randy Meyer. Let's hear from another title contender.
We started a strategy at mid-season this year in Nebraska, and we're going to stick with that. We're not going to make anything change. We're not going to make any radical changes in the tune-up or anything. We're going to stick with the game plan we started in Scribner because it's really paid off really well. The last half of the year, we've won more rounds than anybody. We haven't won any races, but just flat more rounds, and that's what we're interested in here this weekend. We would really, really like to win this race and finish off the season. So I'd say in the back of our minds, we'll probably be a little more aggressive, but we're really going to try really hard and just keep with our play it safe strategy that we have.
Well, that's in keeping with his situation. The man in the next lane is Randy Meyer. When Doug had his big blowover at the Spring Nationals here in Bristol, the man in the next lane was Randy Meyer. Randy Meyer went to the semifinals at the other event here in Bristol this year, the Spring Nationals, but he couldn't answer the bell when he ran out of parts. On board now with Doug Foxworth. Here we go. Foxworth out on top, easy victory, 5:18, 270 mile per hour. Meyer was really never in it. And with that run, Doug Foxworth has eliminated Doug Herbert from the championship. Mathematically, Herbert cannot beat him now, and you can tell the crew is excited. A quick ride with our Tosti in-car cam, fighting the steering wheel all the way down.
466 reaction. You're playing this game right.
Well, there's a couple of real fast guys on the tree up here, and they made me really, really work hard on it all year. I practice at home, I practice in the car, I practice every qualifying session. There's a couple of guys like LANGSON for once. He's probably the best leaver in the whole group, and me and him are going to be duking it out sometime here today, so got to be on time. I hope it lasts. Thank you.
In fact, Doug Foxworth may run into Richard LANGSON, but that remains to be seen. Here's the fourth member of our title quartet, Doug Herbert out of Cherryville, North Carolina. The defending champion has failed in his quest to defend, but you could tell coming into the weekend, Doug knew what he had to do.
We need to win the race, and Doug needs to go out first round or second round is what it comes down to. So, you know, I don't usually like wishing anybody bad luck, so hopefully we'll have a chance to race him first round or second round. If we do, that'd be the ideal thing. Then we can take control of the situation, and if not, then we just hope that somebody else can beat him.
Well, it hasn't happened yet. Doug Herbert had a shot up against Russell Witt, but Russell Witt could not answer the call. Doug Herbert gave it about a 60-foot launch and then shut it down. Now, that may be related to him sitting for a long time at the starting line. Let's see if we can learn more with Fred.
These engines get a lot of heat in them, and, you know, I just can't take that. You know, it's hard to think sometimes when you have a problem like what he had, but, you know, really, you know, it compounded. It causes us, you know, when you build these things to last a certain amount of time, build a certain amount of heat, and, you know, it's unfortunate for us. That's the way it goes. That's right.
The war is still on, though.
That's right.
That war will have to be for the race victory because Doug Herbert's chances of winning the World Championship are now gone. Nevertheless, he will advance to the next round, possibly to play spoiler against Richard LANGSON, while Doug Foxworth will take on Bruce Larson. When we come back, we'll have pro stock action from Bristol. Welcome back to Bristol International Dragway, where the clouds have come overhead, the sun beginning to get low. It's time for semifinal action in Pro Modified. Our first matchup will pit Carl Moyer from Ankeny, Iowa, against Chris Hunt from Killen, Alabama.
Well, Chris Hunt pulled off the upset in the most previous round, Bob, as you'll recall, with Scotty Cannon. So you can bet number 3 qualifier, Carl Moyer, is just a little nervous about this guy.
Chris Hunt has spent every birthday since the age of 16 at a drag strip. He is a true professional, or perhaps a track rat, depending on how you look at it. Right now, he has a chance for his biggest weekend of the year. Looks like problems for Moyer in the right lane, but he has the advantage.
Moyer 657, 209 miles per hour.
And with that, Chris Hunt's Cinderella weekend is over. Carl Moyer advances to the finals. We'll go on to our second matchup. Bill Kuhlman from Wentzville, Missouri, in that 93 blown alcohol Corvette, racing the nitrous-boosted 93 Corvette of Steve Johnson from Carpentersville, Illinois.
Steve Johnson shocked everybody in the most previous round when he bumped off number 1 qualifier, Donnie Little.
And now problems for Steve Johnson? What is this?
Well, it looks like the staging officials are holding him back.
And in fact, they are not going to let... There he is. Now he moves in. It looked like they weren't going to let him run. Very late getting there. And now Steve Johnson, with all kinds of popping underneath the engine bay, goes down.
Well, he turned on the foul light anyway. Bill Kuhlman, 668, 204 miles per hour.
Well, that was a bizarre circumstance for sure. Nevertheless, Bill Kuhlman goes to the final with a shot at his second victory in 1993. He will face Carl Moyer. Folks heading for the concession stands to perhaps get a little cup of coffee and warm up a little bit. It is really getting cool here in Thunder Valley. Let's move on now to the Pro Stock semis. Here comes Mark Thomas, who is having a great second half of the 1993 season. His opponent, Robert Patrick. It'll be a 93 Cutlass with 802 cubic inches of Olds V8 for Thomas and a great big 810 cubic inch Ford V8 for Patrick.
If Mark Thomas keeps performing like this, it's going to get real confusing having a great Mark Thomas in an Oldsmobile in Pro Stock and a world champion Mark Thomas in alcohol funny car.
Oh, especially if this Mark Thomas were to go to, say, Pro Modified and use an alcohol-blown machine. Oh, problems now for Robert Patrick.
Patrick with problems. Mark Thomas, a 696, 199 miles per hour.
Another 6 from Pro Stock. We haven't seen this kind of performance since the most recent race at Pleasant Creek, where we had everybody under 7 seconds, everybody over 200 miles an hour. You just saw Tricky Ricky Smith. He'll be going up against Roy Hill. My goodness, the Professor Hill against Tricky Ricky. This is a Pro Stock fan's dream race.
Yes, it is. 5-time world champ Ricky Smith against the school teacher Roy Hill.
The launch goes to Smith by 5/100ths of a second, side by side to the end.
It'll be Roy Hill, 692, 199 miles per hour. Take one more look at it, just a little tire spin for Roy Hill off the starting line. He's actually behind as Ricky left first, but as they get to the half track, Roy Hill starts to catch him, puts on a high gear charge, and bumps him off.
All those extra cubes get Roy Hill to the final of Pro Stock, where he will face Mark Thomas. Boy, talk about youth and exuberance against age and experience. That should be a great final. Now it's time to catch up with the fourth member of our ESPN broadcast team, the legend himself, Big Daddy Don Garlits, with this week's edition of Big Daddy's Inside Scoop.
I'm in Bobby Rex's Top Fuel pit, and Doug Foxworth drives for him, and he came into this race leading the IHRA World Championship points. Now, I've got Rex here with me, and I've got a couple of questions I want to ask him. Rex, it's important. It's a lot of money. Did you do anything different for this race that we haven't seen on the circuit?
We asked a friend of ours to come along and see if he could give us a little bit of help on the deal, and Tim Farrell came up, so we put two heads together and just see what we can come up with.
Well, Tim Farrell, that's a pretty strong name in drag racing. I've seen him on the Jack Clark car and some other. He used to work with Coletta, so this is a pretty tough guy.
Yeah, you know, he worked with us the first of the year, and then they started running the Taco Bell deal, and we still talk to him every day. When we're at the races racing, we have him on the phone talking to him.
Well, this race has been going on all year, and we've been nip and tuck back and forth, and you've led the points quite a bit during the thing, and it's now come down to one run, hasn't it?
Yes, sir, it has. And it's the next one.
And that's me and you.
Yeah, it is. You know, we're going to stay with the game plan we came in with, and you're running real good, and you know what the track can do. We're just not going to try to beat ourselves.
That's real good. I think that's the way to do it. It's just going to be a good old drag race. That's what I think.
Like we used to do it.
You bet.
Just a couple of old cats circling before the fight. We'll get to the semifinals of Top Fuel next. Welcome back to Thunder Valley, Bristol, Tennessee, where the color in the trees means that autumn is coming. But all these thousands of chilled race fans care about is the coming of the semifinals. We'll begin with Alcohol Funny Car. You will not see this machine in it. This charred bodywork belongs to the new world champ, Todd Payton, who carries the #1 on his quarter panel. And Brett Kepner talked with him.
Well, now that you've had a chance to, quote, catch your breath, end quote, I don't think anybody was disappointed in the most spectacular world championship win ever.
Yeah, I guess you could say we went out with a bang. Went through the lights there and everything lit up, but it was amazing. About 2 minutes before that, I was the happiest little camper there was.
Now, you brought up a point in the ambulance that with the oxygen mask on, nobody else could hear, but you said that funny car racer Flash Gordon kind of inadvertently taught you something there.
Yeah, I was watching the crash and burn tapes there a few weeks ago, and watching one of the funny cars burn that Gordon Minio was in, and he said just relax and undo your belts. And I'll tell you, you get worked up in there, and when you start running out of oxygen, you got to start conserving and breathing a little easier. So it helped. I made it as far as the roof hatch, and then the great guys at PTS pulled me from there.
And Todd Payton will carry that #1 throughout 1994, or perhaps if he defends next year, he'll do it with a little less drama. Right now, there is the matter of this race to decide. Now, there is our starter, Jim Blakely, looking in and giving the okay as they bring down the hood on one of our two competitors. That is Joe Camella's car, I believe. No, Jim Lape. There is Joe Camella. But it was Camella's car that Blakely was having a close look at. Now they are staged. We are racing.
Good even starter, nearly even anyway. It looks like Camella's out on top. Camella pulls it out with a 6:13. Lape also had a 6:13, so this was decided right off the starting line with Camella's excellent 4:27 reaction time.
Here comes Bad Moon Rising, a name campaigned for many years by Jerry Dornicker. His opponent, Butch Kernodle from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Dornicker from Hudson, Ohio.
If I had to pick one driver in the entire Alcohol Funny Car field with the most experience, it would be Butch Kernodle. He's been driving that all-American name on a funny car since I can remember.
Kernodle at 92 Pontiac Trans Am. Spectacular red, white, and blue paint job. I think the only car that perhaps surpasses it in good looks is Bogey Kell with that outrageous Confederate flag on the front.
Dornicker with one of those mountain motors, 542 inches.
Good launch for both drivers. Slight edge for Kernodle, but not much, and he takes it.
Kernodle, a 6:08 with a 0. Listen to this. Dornicker lost with a 6:08 with a 5.
That is close racing. And so Butch Kernodle will go to the final to take on Joe Camella, the first final in IHRA competition for each driver. Time now for the battle that has all of the fans on their seats. You're on board with Richard Langson from Carson City, Nevada, as he gets set to go up against Doug Herbert.
This is white knuckle time. Right now, Langson has to do everything that Larson does, who has to do everything that Foxworth does to keep this race alive.
In fact, Langson must win this race. As long as Foxworth, the points leader, is in the running, anybody who would top him for the championship has to keep winning.
Of special interest, Doug Herbert is running a transmission he borrowed from Russell Witt.
Russell Witt, of course, the man that Herbert beat in the previous round, and now Herbert struggles. Langson gets the win he needs.
Richard Langson, 5:09, 277 miles per hour.
Well, that certainly puts paid to Doug Herbert for 1993. Langson will advance. Here's another look, a great launch.
All you saw was clutch dust, no tire spin whatsoever. This track is in great shape, and the crew chiefs have got the clutches dialed in perfect.
Career best 5:09 and a spot in the final.
Fantastic. What a gamble, huh? Well, Ronnie and Frank went down there, walked the lanes, came back, and they said, what are you doing? Turning off in the left lane. He said, well, we're going to take the left lane. I said, well, what about the oil? He said, no, it looks good. Ronnie said, it's real tacky. It looks really good.
Wasn't it Richard Langston who said we were going to see an O today? We certainly got one right there. So now that puts the heat on this guy, Bruce Larson from Dauphine, Pennsylvania, who must win against this man, Doug Foxworth. However, if Doug wins here, then everybody's got problems. Big smoky burnouts for both drivers, warming those tires. Big Daddy Don Garlett's handling the tuning chores. You can bet he's seen a few championship finals over the years.
Garlett's performs best under pressure, so you can bet he's got this car set up for optimum performance considering the track conditions. Remember, Larson, number 6 qualifier, Foxworth, number 2. Up in smoke goes Foxworth, boils the hides. Perfect run for Larson.
And that opens the door for that man, Richard Langston. Now it's a long shot for Larson to catch Langston, but this could be the pivotal race in 1993 as Doug Foxworth has too much clutch and the tires break loose. Let's ride along.
We'll ride along, and you can see when he comes off the end of the pad, watch the car begin. There was the tire shake. You saw that vibration. Look at Garlett's car driving away.
Man, what a drag race this has become.
Yeah, every run's exciting. It took a little bit of pedaling and driving to get down the track.
Yep, you can see on the header flames, you can see you were in and out of it.
Oh, yeah, real early.
Doug smoked the tires. It's still pedaling. Went 5:12.
Oh, great. Yeah, yeah.
That cost you lane choice. Langston ran a career best 5:09, but it looks like it all comes down to the final race of the final event in the season.
This cold air is tricky to deal with, but we all have the same equalizer out there, so it's doing fine.
There is Doug Foxworth walking away dejectedly. He's had so much to do this year. You can see the crewman saying, no thanks. An interview is not uppermost in our minds right now. It'll be Langston against Larson. The winner will be the 1993 IHRA World Champion. We'll take a quick timeout. We'll all take a deep breath, and we'll return for finals time. There's a harvest moon overhead. Thunder Valley in Bristol, Tennessee. Perfect racing conditions as we get set for finals, beginning with Pro Stock. Roy Hill and Mark Thomas. Boy, the ironies go on forever. There is Mark Thomas in his rookie year, in his very first final. His opponent, Roy Hill, has seen so many side-by-side drag races, so many championship finals, so many white-knuckle moments. Who do you pick?
Well, Thomas has the whole shot, Bob. Let's see if he can hold him up. No, Hill did it again. 693, 199 miles per hour. What a top-end charge Hill's Thunderbird has. Take a look at it again. Watch. It's going to be Mark Thomas out first. A 468 to a 443 react. At the 8th mile, it's still Thomas. Now watch Hill in the last 100 feet.
He left on you, but once again, your horsepower got it.
This thing's really running. This Ford motor John Causey built me is the strongest thing I've had. And this Ford Thunderbird that Jerry Haas built. And the crew I've got, I can't say enough for them. All the sponsors, everybody's been so good. And this is a dream come true, Brett.
Roy Hill wins the Fall Nationals, and we move on to Pro Modified. There is Bill Kuhlman. Wild Bill in his 93 Corvette, alcohol burning, blown. His opponent, Carl Moyer, normally aspirated, 706 cubic inches of Pontiac power with nitrous injection. The whole season right here for these guys.
Number 3 and 4 qualifiers. Number 1 and 2 are out, and it looks like Kuhlman and Moyer just about even off the line.
But not at the finish.
No, Bill Kuhlman, 668, 204. Moyer dropped out at about the 8th mile. Take a look at it one more time. Just a little tire spin for Kuhlman off the line. You can see that Moyer had just a slight advantage off the line, not much. Now at the 8th mile, Moyer's starting to have some problems. You can see the sparks and the exhaust snapping.
Win number 2 this year, and you solidified. That race, by the way, was for number 2 in the world.
Right, I realize that. Carl's a great competitor, and it's great that 2 old guys can get out there and run. I'll tell you what, I'm so proud of being sponsored by Summit. Summit sticks with me, rain or shine, and I'm glad to end the season this way for those guys. John Hedges, all the boys in the advertising department, Dave Price, everybody there, Paul Sergi especially.
Congratulations, Bill Kuhlman, and we move on to the Alcohol Funny Car final. Butch Kernodle against Joe Cabela. In the 15 previous Alcohol Funny Car races held here in Thunder Valley, we have never had a repeat winner, and it'll be 16 for 16 tonight. Butch Kernodle is there alone. Cabela couldn't answer the bell. Kernodle has never won here until now.
Kernodle did not drive it out the back door. 681. He wanted to save the motor. Brett talked with him.
You're walking out of here not only with a national event win, but also with a track record, buddy. It was a great job.
It is fine. Bob Newberry put me right in the ball game. We found out all year long there was a 2x4 under the throttle.
Oh, there you go. Just look at it this way. It's a great tune-up for 94.
Thank you. I hope I see you next year.
And so Butch Kernodle, with power from his good buddy and former IHRA champion Bob Newberry, takes Alcohol Funny Car. Now a special look back into the darkness of the Bristol, Tennessee night from the machine of Richard Langson. Next to him will be Bruce Larson. One race for the championship.
The championship of the Fall Nationals, the championship of the world. Everything is on the line. This has been the closest top fuel competition in the history of the International Hot Rod Association.
A $20,000 purse, a $30,000 championship bonus. It's all on the line right here. Good launches, and then trouble in the right lane for Larson.
It'll be Richard Langson, 513, 278 mile per hour, and the crew goes crazy.
He has his $50,000. He has come from behind to take the Top Fuel World Championship from Doug Foxworth, and here's what it looks like again. Big problems for Bruce Larson.
Larson lifted out of it, back into it, back out of it, because he couldn't get the rear end to hook.
Without taking anything away from anybody else who's involved in this World Championship, for a Top Fuel World title to be won by a team with no sponsorship, that work all on their own for no pay, is amazing. It was an excellent job.
It is amazing. And I want to thank all these guys, and if Frank was here, I'd thank him too.
Yes.
He's up there. Don't worry. You'll see him.
And you've been doing a great job too.
You're probably balling right now.
And understandably, great job.
No, I don't even think I believe it yet. You know, it hasn't sunk in.
You will.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right. Yes.
All right.
One final note on this championship for Richard Langson. He won it in his 5th meeting with Bruce Larson, taking the series championship 3 races to 2. We'll be back to wrap things up. The Fall Nationals at Bristol, Tennessee are now history, and with them the 1993 International Hot Rod Association World Championship season. Ted, a final look at the points and our champions.
In Top Fuel, there's the way they finish. Richard Langson, Doug Foxworth, Bruce Larson, Doug Herbert, in that order, the closest in the history of IHRA. In Alcohol Funny Car, Todd Payton, 500 points above Jim Bailey. Mark Thomas finished in 3rd place for the first time in 3 years. In Pro Modified, Scotty Cannon with 2,000 points over Bill Kuhlman, with his runner-up finish today, moved into 2nd place. Carl Moyer finished in 3rd. In Pro Stock, Doug Kirk with a decisive victory over Tim Neighbors, but look at 3rd and 4th place. Floyd Cheek and Roy Hill separated by 1 point.